Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Read Good, Draw Bad, where I read amazing books and I draw some terrible pictures at the same time. And if you can't tell today is going to be a very factual episode. Now, this might be a biased review because in case you did not know, foxes, roxes, they're not the biggest, they're not the strongest, but they are, in my opinion, the coolest. Now, foxes are cute, excellent animals where you can say, Mother Nature, you did a good one. I like this one better than the mosquito. In case you couldn't tell, foxes are one of my favorite animals. And I even looked up whether I could get a fox for a pet. Let me tell you, having a fox in a big city, big no-no. Foxes need lots of space to run and they need space to dig. So if you're a country person, maybe a fox is for you. Did you know that there's over 20 different kinds of foxes and they live all over the world? There's a red fox, there's a fennec fox, there's a Bengal fox, heck, there's even a silver fox. Ooh. And today's book, we're going to be talking about a fox that visits the author's property and they slowly become friends. This fox that we're going to be talking about definitely fulfills the criteria of friendship is magic. And I think this book will be a lot of fun for you if you enjoy educational information about animals like me. So if you like a dose of living in the country, some American nature facts, and foxes, then you should read the book Fox and I by Catherine Raven. There's something special about the relationship between a human and a dog or a cat or any other kind of animal, and they just can't put my finger on it, but I feel like Disney should make a movie about this. No, not that movie, but another movie, a kind of movie where you talk about the wild and living in the wild with wild animals. No, not that movie. Okay, you know what? Forget it. However, the book that we're talking about today definitely has certain things that are similar to other books or other movies about wild animals and humans' relationship with nature. First, a too long didn't watch summary. This book is about a fox, who the author simply calls Fox, and the author herself, Catherine Raven. There are no fox pets in this book. This is not about pets. This is about wild animals. And thematically, I think this book has three central themes. The first theme is about humans and our relationship with nature and how complicated it can be, especially if you're someone who studies nature. The second main theme is about the American landscape and all the different laws about wilderness and places that are considered wild and whether they actually serve the interests of wild animals or not. And the third theme, and I think the most important theme, is about friendship between animals and humans, and specifically between Catherine and her friend Fox. Let's get into the review. Now, I really like this book. I'm going to say that straight away, but sometimes the writing style irked me. And the reason's really simple, is because sometimes the focus of the book switched from the fox and the author to just being about the author. And I'm here to tell you, big mistake. This book is about the fox. Let's not get that twisted. At the end of the day, I just really want to know what happened to Fox. What was he eating that day? All jokes aside, there are some really interesting attempts to weave in elements about American natural history, about American conservationism, and about different kinds of animals that live all over North America. But this had nothing to do with the fox. I almost wish there had been a second book called Fox and I Part 2, What I Learned after Fox and I. And I bring this up because sometimes those elements were so interesting. I wish they were their own book because I probably would have read that book. Now, how do we describe the two central protagonists of this book? Well, first we'll start with the author, Catherine. She's a person who thinks about science and about facts, and I think sometimes she keeps people a bit at a distance within the book, and that's why the fox is so interesting, because the fox is not afraid of Catherine. They form a very natural friendship because they're both people who are perhaps a bit shy. She tries to learn what he likes and doesn't like, and to treat him with respect, just like she treats the other animals on her property with respect. And again, I want to really emphasize that at the start of the book, she has many ideas that are really based in how to be a scientist and how to be a good scientist that were maybe told to her by other people. However, as her relationship with Fox goes on, I think a lot of her ideas about how to be a good scientist get challenged and become perhaps a different kind of scientist, someone who looks at nature a little different before Fox arrived in her life. But let's talk about the other main character of this book. If we were to describe Fox, he would not be described as what we would call a superhero character. character, maybe not even a sidekick. Catherine notes that Fox is a runt of a litter. He's clearly small for a male fox. He makes a quacking sound, so something's clearly not right with his vocal cords. And he maybe isn't as strong as well as a male fox should be, so most likely he was not expected to survive, but he did survive because he's actually really intelligent, and he used other qualities other than being strong and powerful, which, you know, in the wild really matters. And he makes friends with the author because he can see the value of their relationship. So she does nice things for him, like protect him from dogs and wild cats that are around the property, and he in return does also nice things like leave dead rats and other dead animals on her doorstep. One of the things that Catherine often did was read the book The Little Prince to Fox. And if you know anything about The Little Prince, which I hadn't read until after I finished this book, you'll know that in The Little Prince there's an actual fox that makes friends with the main character, the Little Prince, and they form a very special kind of friendship. And so I think the author did a really good job of trying to make sense of, I in real life met a fox and found a relationship that felt very similar to this other book that was made that's very popular. And as you can imagine, there's sort of a book within a book narrative going on here. Side note, the author really loves classical literature, and her favorite book, hands down, is Moby Dick. So for all of those Moby Dick haters out there, I'm really sorry, but the white whale definitely rears its giant spout. Now, as Catherine gets to know Fox, she realizes something about herself, and I found this passage really interesting, so I'm just gonna read it to you. I had barely enough social intelligence to understand that adults, least of all trained scientists, don't go around treating wild foxes as if they have personalities. And this line struck me as a deep criticism of scientific methodology in general, and perhaps scientists in an academic setting in general, because everyone who I know who loves animals describe animals as having their own personality. Animals can be funny, animals can get angry, animals have emotions. Numerous studies that have already shown this, and numerous books that I'm sure we could talk to death about how animals feel and how animals think. Sometimes we can spend so long studying something that we become really detached from the whole reason that we love something in the first place. I can eat 8 gallons of ice cream in one sitting, fact. That doesn't mean that I remember or even know really what it tastes like by the time I'm on gallon number 2. And in the same way, people who are academics or people who study deeply in a subject sometimes forget what brought them to that subject in the first place. Anyways, I'm very fascinated by scientific methodology and scientific principles in general. If you have any suggestions for books about scientific methodology or about scientific principles, and sometimes the critique of those scientific principles, I'd probably be very interested in that. So feel free to leave me a book recommendation in the comments below. So once we get to the middle of the book, as their relationship continues to grow, they are finally what I would call best friends. However, there is a moment of some sadness. Shortly after the middle of the book, there's a situation where the author fears Fox has died. She cannot find him, he's not in his usual places, and she's very worried that he's been eaten or something worse has happened to him. And this sets the author into what I would politely call a depression spiral. I'll read you a quote. After realizing that Fox was dead, I kept my eyes on the blowing hide until darkness separated us. I would like to tell you about sadness and loneliness and about losing my fox, but I won't, because I didn't lose my fox. He wasn't mine to lose. And I could not imagine the fox and me as a pair. What? This book is called The Fox and I, not the fox who's sometimes sort of friends with me and like, he's not mine, I'm not, nobody belongs to anybody. He's your friend. He's your friend. To, in the middle of the book, sort of backtrack and gaslight the reader and tell them, I'm not friends with this animal. He's free. Let him be free. I think that's like a very funny thing to do, and I found it very confusing in the middle of the book because I could tell she was incredibly sad and incredibly emotional, but her desire to detach from the subject was just so dramatic. And I think it just was, for me as a reader, I just could not believe it. Now, near the end of the book, Catherine realizes that she's made a friendship that's fleeting but special. And if you know anything about wild animals, it's that their lifespan is not as long as our lifespan. Most foxes are only expected to live 2 to 4 years, and that's because some other animal tends to eat them. I won't spoil the ending of this book for you, but I found it very fulfilling overall, and I will say that the author constantly tried to ruin my Snow White fantasy of her traipsing through the woods, picking flower petals, with multiple animals following her in tow while she sings. This book is crushing my honest fantasy about how I think biologists work or should work, but I also respect the fact that there are serious people who do serious science in this world, and maybe that's not the same as me, a book reviewer. But this book is a wonderful meditation on the special kind of friendships that you can only have maybe once or twice in your life. Now, there's some sadness with having a special kind of friendship that can only happen maybe once or twice in your lifetime. That friendship might not last forever. So we have to cherish the friends that we have. And if I could give you any advice, I would say always tell your friends that you love them, because you don't always know how long they'll be around for. So I hope one day you can make a friend so special the way Catherine made a friend in Fox and I, and it made the world a better place because they were around hanging out with you. This book was a wonderful look into American wildlife, and I learned way more nature facts than I expected. So if you enjoy science authors or reading about scientists who are learning about the world in general, I think this might be a great book for you. It might also be a good book for you if you're someone who likes foxes, like me. Thanks so much for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. If you would like to comment about how amazing foxes are, please leave me a comment in the comments below. Stay curious, stay reading.